He's helped me a lot in terms of changing my mindset. And so I think that's why I think that's why the word reset meant so much, it it resonated with me because I think it was a reset of the mind that I have started to stumble upon.
Mhm.
I think for a long time, when I was talking to Harim about the business, when I was talking to him about who I am, I'm like, this is who I am, but I'm open to change and growth. But the reality is, I didn't know what change and growth actually meant. Like I was like I know change, like a worm turns into a butterfly, right? Like you see a
Or a
metamorphosis.
caterpillar.
Caterpillars too,
Yeah.
but you said a
Right,
worm.
sorry.
But
Yeah.
I
but
did,
Let's
I
let's
yes,
did.
start you off. Let's start you off as a
let's.
caterpillar instead of a worm this time
No,
around.
no. You know what I love about people? Their hearts. And talking about movies. Welcome to the Heartbeat Film Podcast. This podcast is all about getting to know the hearts of the people who make the art we love. I'm Jan.
I'm Harim. And I'm Chris. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. Let's start the show.
Hey guys, welcome to our first show of 2023. In today's show, we're chatting about our favorite movies and TV shows of 2022, as well as looking to the year ahead and what we all want to accomplish. So, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. Great job. Yeah. Great
So
intro.
good intro.
Beautiful.
Man,
Thank
Smooth.
look at we're
Smooth.
getting our act. Look at us.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the big things that I want to talk about was, first of all, well, I was about to say something, but I guess I'll stop. One of the big things that I wanted to, I was saying Courtney's gone. Courtney's missing, and we miss her. We love
Yeah,
her.
yeah,
Yeah.
Courtney
we
had
do.
to take a
There's
little hiatus
facts.
to focus on the things that, other things that she loves. So, we are Courtney less right now, but as always, the podcast is growing and building, and that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is growth and change, which I'm
Yeah.
actually surprisingly really excited to talk about because I've had a lot of revelations the past couple of days about that. I don't know if it's because my birthday just passed. I feel like I'm on a ship with Harim shifting his.
Yeah, but no one can see that
I
because the
know.
camera's on you. Until I'll show everyone. For those of you that are watching, I'm just adjusting the camera a little bit, and it looks a little bit like a rocket
Yeah.
boat. But I was trying to get myself centered. It's just trying to get myself centered. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Well, we
We
were
were saying happy
that,
birthday to Jan.
Yes.
Oh, happy birthday, Jan.
That's
Happy
right.
birthday. Harim, why are you acting like you don't know it's my birthday? You literally
No,
just
I
went
knew.
to my birthday.
It was
dinner.
Friday. We went
Yeah.
out to dinner. It was great.
So Chris had a birthday and I had a birthday. Chris's birthday was December the 22nd and
Yes.
my birthday was January the 6th, and we both had celebrations.
We did. We did. Yes. And we could not be at each other's celebrations, unfortunately, in person
I
at
know.
least. But they were both great.
So how was yours? Chris had a party. He invited Harim and me and Courtney all the way here in Nashville.
And they refused to come. So it was good. Yeah, it was fantastic.
I feel like Harim ripped
Listen.
up the invitation. I said, Harim, don't
No,
rip
no,
up the
no.
invitation.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
When the
but-
podcast makes that private plane money, we'll be there. Every
That's
single
right.
time.
I had a great
Very
time.
exciting.
Everybody came out to the house, to the tree house, as I call it, because it's the back deck is basically built around this beautiful tree. That's this oak tree back there. Perfect for entertaining. And I've had a few kind of parties at the house, and this one was by far the biggest, just in terms of how many of my friends came out to support me and just be a part of celebrating the new year and all that stuff. So it was great. It was phenomenal. So
Yeah.
many. I invited too many people. That's the truth. I invited
And
too many people.
we
And
actually
too many
have
people said
video.
yes.
We actually
No,
have
we don't.
video of
We
Chris.
don't. There's no video that exists.
Oh, I got the video, and that I might insert it into this or put
So
it
this
on
is
our
what
social.
we call a deep fake. What you're about to see is there's a deep fake video of me created by AI that you should not trust
Deep fake AI.
as reliable at all. Just FYI.
Can I just say?
Tell by the
Well,
hair.
that sounds like a great time. That sounds
It
like
was
a great
an
time.
amazing time.
Yeah.
Like having that many of the incredibly talented people that are part of my Atlanta film family all in one place was
Yeah.
truly humbling and epic. Just watching in my mind, I'm always thinking, oh, why haven't these two people met? And then they came together, like people from Bark Bark, people from Radiant 3,
Yeah, production
just
companies in
yeah,
Atlanta.
all these
Yeah.
Atlanta production companies with whom I've worked, Jan has worked. I mean, just awesome people who
Yeah.
putting their heads together, just see the fun conversations happen, the kind of more work related conversations happening. A lot of sparks flew. So it really meant a lot to me to kind of foster that environment where that was happening. And
Mm.
yeah, have food and have fun. And it was monumental. It was amazing. I had a great time.
That makes me so happy because that's right before we got on. An FYI, everybody, Chris is on location right now, about to go shoot something really cool. So he's hanging out. I don't know how to. I was about to say in his hotel room, but then I was like, "Is that weird?" And then I was like, "Well, without his podcast gear," and I was like, "Well, is that weird?" But anyway, then
Well, you just made it
What
weird
city are
by
you in?
saying,
What city are you in?
what city am I in? I'm in North Carolina,
mm,
in a city in North Carolina.
Nice.
The
Nice.
name of which is escaping me right now. But I'm going to be filming at Camp Lejeune, actually, the Marine space here. So I'm not too far
Oh,
from
that's
there.
wonderful.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
Hmm.
So yeah, so what's exciting about that is right before we jumped on the call, Chris and I talked about, and I probably will be super emotional this episode because just
You better be.
just because just the topics I guess that we're talking about, birthdays, just passing, stuff like that, getting a year older, the new year. Um, he was saying all of this and it made me really miss Atlanta, and just miss our family. But then I think about the family that I'm building here, with Harim and Courtney and other people, and the kind of environment that Chris and I have cultivated in Atlanta before I left, and he's continuing to do after I'm gone, is bringing people of like-mindedness that want to create together and create stuff with people that they really care about, and creating a community of care and art. And so I know that Haram and I and Courtney have talked about kind of building that here. So even though I miss Atlanta, I truly do believe that that can be done here in Nashville, and wherever you place yourself as an artist, wherever you find yourself as an artist, you can create that environment. So it's more encouraging and inspiring to me than it would be sad as if I would have felt last year, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I miss Atlanta when I'm not there all the time, as much as Italy is amazing, which is where I spend the rest of my time. It's just, it's a different world, obviously. My family is there, so that's obviously a huge motivator for me to be there and a huge part of why I love it there. And it's just an incredible country and the culture, and I have friends there as well, so it's special, but there's just something magic about Atlanta, and especially the everybody shares that real desire to build community with each other is something that I haven't really experienced to that extent anywhere else, even in New York when I was there. So yeah, it's been a real sea change for me in the best possible way to be able to foster that kind of energy in a place that has really become more like home to me than anywhere I've ever
Mm,
been. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited to keep it going.
And I also realized that, and Haram and I have had this discussion before, just about like, is it just Atlanta? And I truly believe it is, but I will also say that the things that, like, I bring Atlanta with me wherever I go,
Right.
and the things that are you and where you were birthed and grown, and those great things you bring to wherever you go, so you can continue to build cities and build communities wherever you go. So for me, I'm taking the things that I was born into and bringing it here with me to Nashville, and hopefully that will grow.
Yeah.
Hey, Rim, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I have a different perspective on it. So, and not to, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, Atlanta or whatever, but for me, so I grew up in a very small town and, kind of got that big fish, small pond feeling as far as a creative early on. You know what I mean? But then also, and people kind of use it as a negative notion too, where it's like, well, if you got to do a real place with real creatives, you wouldn't be as special. And then I moved to a kind of like slightly bigger town, maybe like 20,000 population. And then that's when I finally moved to Nashville, generally speaking. And so for me, the desire was to always have creative community, people that thought like I did, saw the world like I did, where it doesn't take as much exposition to arrive at the same destination. And so I think it's not just, the cities per se. I think it goes down to wherever the collective of individuals that are operating at a level that you can relate to or desire to be mentored by, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think it's kind of like, John Maxwell talks about 360 influence, where it's like you're influencing the people that are mentoring you, you're influencing people at the same level, and then people coming behind you. And the school is definitely an example of that. And I think, the way the world is shifting right now, and the way that our world is tremendously shifting and recalibrating itself in any facet, as far as streaming platforms or production companies or the processes that we use, or, and so I think, to me, it's like we're always influencing each other. And for me, I found a bunch of corrupt people within our industry, some bad people, not a bunch, but a few, right? A few people that I wouldn't consider to be good people or my people. And then I think that, with that said, there's a tremendous amount of amazing people, and even within the Nashville industry, there's probably only maybe 7 big studios that are actually fronting the majority of labor that's happening here, that is grounded here. And a lot of those companies have amazing people that I love talking to and networking with and getting to know. And so to me, it's more of a good people are everywhere. It's just difficult to find them, and it's easier to find them in concentrations of certain cities. But even when we talk about Atlanta and Nashville, it's like, for me, I've never grown up in a place where there was amazing communities like what I find here. And so I can't say, oh, Nashville this or Atlanta that. Like, both are wonderful. They're what I've dreamed of, because I didn't have access to anything that was high caliber creative energy. It was just a far cry. Like, me growing up, it was like Hollywood, Vancouver, New York, like all those things were like a pipe dream. People don't get to do that. You know what I mean? That's for people that make it crazy and have tremendous opportunity or whatever, So to move to a place where, especially Nashville, it's growing tremendously in its industry, and to have a need and a demand for people like me and my skill set and talent, and have opportunity to grow, there's nothing better. And then on top of that, having people that can show me how to do it better and call me to a higher standard, as well as be good friends, So I think,
Yeah.
I don't know how to relate to the talking cities back and forth, because to me, it's like, I just want to be wherever those creatives are.
Exactly.
And wherever people like us are. So whether it's on a podcast or whether it's in a city, I'm there. I want to be there.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, not speaking of, I was trying to do a transition, but I don't know.
It was good. The failure was the best transition you can do.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it right
now. It's like,
now.
well, speaking of, I made a mistake. This is a transition, by the way.
We're currently transitioning.
Yeah.
Stand by for transition.
Stand by for a good transition.
Here it comes.
Right here.
Well, I was wondering,
it's a 3-person transition. We were all involved. Teamwork.
I was wondering. Well, also
new topic.
Queuing,
loading.
Harim,
I'm helping.
I'm
making it like a where the system processes for what's announcing your
That's
AI
right.
topic.
Maybe like a little transition jingle.
No, you're the. We got our roles out of order.
Right.
Chris and I are doing all the operations here. You got to be the voice. Someone's got to talk.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll never make it to said topic.
Oh my
Man,
God.
this is a long transition.
Okay, so
But it's a good
I was
one.
wondering what.
Maybe the best.
Really quickly before, I wanted to say that Harim just dropped some wisdom and Chris dropped some wisdom. So they both are going to do that in like the.
Thanks for letting him know. Letting him know my biggest secret. I was going to drop more bombs on this one.
They both are going to do that in classes they're going to teach this year. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so my other second question, obviously, guys, I'm leading the show this week because we're sans Courtney. So I'm trying to be the organized, cool Courtney right now. I don't know how well that's happening, but
It's fantastic. She'd be very
You're
proud of
doing
you.
good. Yeah.
So, asking you guys on my list is what are your favorite movies and TV shows of 2022? I have a couple, but I definitely want to hear y'all's.
Oh, I'm gonna hear
Start
yours
us off.
first, actually.
Start us off.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one show that I discovered.
What if they're all the same? Can you imagine?
Yes. Let's
Anyway,
go.
I'm sorry.
One show that I discovered that I actually really liked was The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
Pretty good.
Heard of it? Heard about it?
It's by David E. Kelly, who did The Practice and Ally McBeal, which I never watched those shows in the past. But watching The Lincoln Lawyer, first of all, the writing is incredible. To me, the writing is really good. I think it's written for actors. That's what I think is interesting about it, because they feel so real. And I think it's good material for the actors to grab a hold of and make it their own. And so that's why I really like the show. And I can see now why The Practice and Ally McBeal and all of those shows under his tutelage did so well. I think because of the writing. Great cast, great acting. I love it. My second favorite
I
one.
just realized I've done this all wrong.
What?
My body temperature just went up a little bit. Is Lincoln Lawyer, isn't that a show?
Yeah.
It's a remake of a movie, but it says a show.
Yeah.
See, when you sent out the email and said what our favorite movies were, I literally was like, eliminate all shows, and I just stuck to movies. So now I'm like, oh, there are some good shows.
Right
Well,
now.
you can still say them. Like, it's not, you can
Well, now I
still
got to
say
think of them off the top of my head.
That's why I'm
But
going
anyway,
first.
Exactly.
That's
That
why
That
I'm
was her
first.
goal. That was her goal.
I
Harim,
just feel like I need
totally
to
throw you off the game.
confess.
No. All right. So my second one.
Director mind games to get the best performance.
Exactly.
My second one.
It's written for us, the actors.
Harim.
I'm sorry. No, please continue.
Eduardo Leon.
I'll stop interrupting you.
Okay.
I'll stop interrupting. How'd you know my middle name?
I don't know. How did I?
Did you give her your social
Well.
security number? Have you checked your accounts?
My second one is Redeeming Love, which is surprising
that?
for me. So Redeeming
I haven't
Love.
even heard of it.
You've never heard of Redeeming Love?
No, man.
I do love some good romance stuff, but I don't.
It's so Redeeming Love is a book that's written by Francine Rivers, who I think is a faith-based writer. I've never read her stuff, but basically the movie is about, it takes place during the gold rush in the 1800s, and it's about this woman who grew up as a child and then grew up into prostitution. And she obviously grew up in this world and she didn't see or know more. And basically this guy saw her, fell in love with her. He wasn't like a client or anything. He fell in love with her and basically did whatever he could to show his love to her. But she was so broken, she didn't know how to accept it. And so she kept pushing away his love. And it's just a really good movie about the power of redemption in love and all the things that you would need to do to, and there's something really strong at the end about how she stood up to ultimately her abusers when she was a child. And it's about using her voice. It's just a really powerful movie. And it's based off of the book of Hosea in the Bible, and just about God's love for for broken people. And so it's
Nice.
a really good movie.
Was that on Netflix as well?
No, it's on probably Prime or HBO or something now.
Okay, cool. Nice.
It's really
What about
good.
you, Harim? What you got?
Ooh, okay. So we'll go with 3 because I tagged on a TV show at the end now.
Yeah.
So this year I haven't been watching a lot of new movies, and I think we're in that scope, right? Like 2023,
Right.
because I've been doing a lot of script mapping, and I think I mentioned a couple of times in podcasts, I've been doing a bunch of older Spielbergs and Gladiator, just studying old films. But the few that slipped in that really stood out to me, honorable mention would be Everything Everywhere All at Once. I loved that. Thank you, Chris,
Yeah.
for getting us all into that. That was a fantastic
It
film, and
was.
I look forward to more like that. I've been watching a few Chinese films. I think the Asian culture is making tremendous stories this year, but I think the standouts are probably Intergalactic. I think Kid Cudi was the producer on that and created the
Right.
show. It's
Oh, yeah.
all
I didn't see that
animation.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a romance film, just over an hour, I think, and it's all, the music is phenomenal. And then I want to parallel it to something like Into the Spider-Verse as far as animation style, but it's not. It
Right.
has its own roots, and it's about an African-American couple falling in love in today's time and age. And it just has beautiful tension. And it's like one of those things where, I think I lean a little feminine, you know what I mean? I enjoy watching romance stuff, but it's very difficult sometimes for a film to execute hitting romance. It's hard to make you feel love and appreciation for relationships. And that one hit it, and it's surprising because it's animation. I think it is because it is animation. The venue and the way they approached it, how beautiful everything was laid out and illustrated and put together, and just the story and how simple and relatable it was as humans, just blew me away. So I feel like that was one of the top ones that I watched this year.
Nice.
Another one would be, let me see here, I wrote them down real quick. I also feel like The Gray Man was extremely entertaining. Like I knocked. You guys remember when I knocked Top Gun? Because I felt like
Right.
it fell short of its standard. As a producer, I have to admit, obviously it made a crap ton of money, but I just felt like Tom Cruise fell short. But The Gray Man, as far as action and just pure entertainment and spectacle and display, it raised a bar for action films. It goes back to some of the best Bond films, where it's just like everything you're watching is such candy to the eyes, and it's so like carefully orchestrated and put together and visualized, and it's just so like it's another world on top of having a very compelling, insightful, action-oriented story with some great stars, obviously.
Nice.
So I feel like that one's my number two. Um, and then, oh man, so the TV show is gotta be, and I don't know, it might have. They just did a season. It sold to Hulu, so I'm not positive it's not 2022. So forgive me if I'm wrong on this one. But I just this year watched The Orville, and it's 3 seasons. It's executive
Mm-hmm.
produced by Seth MacFarlane, who's brilliant, obviously, and he acts as one of the leads in it. And then some of the other leads are, from Friday Night Lights. It's just got such an incredible cast, and I don't even know how to articulate the simple beauty of it. And when I watch it, I think, is this because I'm old, right? Because it harkens back to Star Trek. It has a very traditional music score. The elements are simplistic, and the pacing of the storytelling is it's not too complex. It's not trying to blow your mind. It's like digestible evening watch, so to speak. It's not too gruesome or gross or anything, but at the same time, it tackles some of the whole all 3 seasons tackle some of the biggest obstacles in our culture right now, but in such a clever way through alien races and all these very bizarre, like almost thinking backwards about it. And I've just found such a tremendous relaxation and just kind of crushing a couple episodes, here and there, and just having it as the easy thing to watch and easy thing to digest. And I can't compliment Seth enough for creating something so beautiful. And then when it sold to Hulu, or I don't know, I shouldn't say sold, whenever they upgraded to Hulu and it kind of changed, season 3 has such a higher level of special effects and graphics. And they just like, they executed the budget so well without changing any of the fundamentals. It's a character driven, enjoyable, socially like kind of digestible storytelling approach. And so I feel like that was the big one that stood out this year, where it's like when I got to the end of season 3, I was just like, man, that helped me find a place of peace in this year and helped me just kind of relax and just enjoy the simple storytelling. You know what I mean? Like kind of like almost looking back to Friends and Seinfeld, where it's like we're not going to do too much here. We're just going to help you enjoy some great people and great characters, and that's how I kind of felt watching the Orville. So
Nice.
Those are
Nice.
great. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you
all right,
mentioned a couple of
Chris.
things that have been on my queue for a while that I haven't checked out yet. So I definitely need to get myself into the Orville and Gray Man. For me, you stole one of mine. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Absolutely like
Well, that was my
changed me
honorable
in the best
mention.
possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's all the things. It was all the things. I had one of the best theater experiences I've ever had watching
Mm.
that film. It's phenomenal. Everything about it just crushed. It was just right on point. And we've talked about it before, so I won't dive back into it right now. But
Yeah, we talked about it on Bajo's episode for those of you
yes,
that
that's
want to go
right.
listen.
Episode
Exactly. Yeah,
2, I
because he
think.
loved it too,
Yeah.
which is super fun. That was a great conversation. Yeah, so that's up there. And then the other one that I'll mention, the film that I'll mention is The Worst Person in the World,
Mm.
which I believe is a Swedish film,
Mhm.
about a woman kind of chronicling her, uh, a character named Julie chronicling her love life, in like the most funny and kind of introspective way. It's so good. It's so good. I didn't get to see it in the theater, but I saw it on a flight. And it was just phenomenal. A friend of mine had recommended it, and I'd heard about it like on NPR or something too. And it's just incredibly, it kind of harkens back to, in terms of the tone, to Amelie, in terms of like how it's
Mm.
narrated and how the kind of narrative weaves a little bit. It's and this the kind of sensibility in terms of the tone. It's just a really creative and romantic, um, and very feminist story, and I really loved it. I didn't expect to necessarily because I didn't really know that much about it, but it kind of it caught me. So that's one that stuck with me. And then yeah, I just have to mention the final season 4 of Atlanta was just
Mm.
phenomenal. It was just so gripping, and one of our friends, Andrea Lang,
Yeah.
has a little cameo in it that cracked me up so hard without a single line. Like she didn't even
She's
have a
so funny.
line. It was just so funny, just an incredibly brilliant show that ended, the best imaginable way. It was just such a great wrap up to that incredible group of people, and the way that they told stories. So I admire it so much. It's that show continues to inspire me all the time in terms of like the way I want to tell stories, how I want to weave comedy into drama and drama into comedy, and just kind of get better at really exploring my voice in a way that will exhibit what I want to see in terms of how I think and how I relate to the world. So yeah, that show is just going to be in the pantheon forever for me.
What does pantheon mean?
Pantheon, man, that's where you kind of keep your heroes, right? It's where you almost like a place, where you I don't want to say like bury your heroes, but it's like where you exalt your heroes, almost like an arena, a venue that houses monuments to all the people, all the objects, the things that you venerate.
So would the CW be that for me, like the
I
Flash,
believe that it might
Gotham
be.
Spring?
I believe that would make sense. However you want to relate to that.
What was the word again?
Pantheon.
The CW is my pantheon.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
And I just
Any
want to
more of
quickly
those?
mention some really good friends of mine that I went to film school with. Their show Little Demon came out on HBO season 1 this
oh,
year, and it's so funny. It's animated. It's a very adult animated series that is so funny. Danny DeVito stars in it. His daughter is the main character. Aubrey Plaza plays the mom of this little girl, who's a teenage girl who is the Antichrist, and it's stupid funny, and it's just like totally irreverent, and it's hilarious. So I'm so proud of my friends, Kieran Valla, who's one of the creators of it. He and I went to film school together, um, along with Mike Appy, who's the editor. We all went to school together, so those guys, I could not be more proud of them for getting their show up and running. It took a long time, but they got it out there, and it's phenomenal. So I hope they get a chance to do a season 2.
I'm
That's
excited.
awesome. Yeah, I
I'm
saw that. I
excited.
haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it's great. You should check it out.
I'm excited for us to bring more of our friends on this year. That's what
Yeah.
I'm really excited about, the people that we care about. I think that's the cool thing about just kind of the club and the podcast, and kind of what Chris and Harim were talking about as well in terms of community, is the people that we love and our friends and people that make us feel seen and heard. And so I'm excited to go on that journey for 2023.
Yeah.
So that being said,
Don't stop. Keep going.
that being said, I'm curious to know.
She was so close, Harim. She was so close.
Transition.
She can't help herself.
I
You gotta
know.
just keep rolling.
Okay. I'm curious to know y'all's goals for 2023. And let me preface this by saying, I really am interested in having a conversation about that and about change and growth, because I've been having I'm trying to lean in closer to the mic because the last time I had problems.
For those of you watching this, Jan is in a rocking chair. It's very difficult to keep consistent audio when you're just.
So I want to know kind of what your personal and career goals are for 2023. And then I wrote this little statement, if you guys want to hear.
Of course, let's go.
So I thought, okay, so what is the word? Everybody's talking about new goals and all this stuff for 2023. And I thought, well, what does the word reset mean? So I went online and I looked at, okay, what does reset mean? And it means to bring, okay, it means to bring back to zero, to set again or anew, to revalue, adjust, renew, readapt. And then what is the purpose of a reset? And the purpose of a reset is to clear any pending errors or events and make it like a clean slate, essentially. So, with that being said, and hearing those kind of synonyms, number one, what does reset mean to you guys?
I mean, it's interesting to hear those definitions. I mean, I honestly haven't really thought about 2023 as what I would consider a reset. Like I try not to, because I feel like to me there's like a connotation that there was something wrong with what I was doing that I need to stop doing and start over. And I don't know that that's really how I want to approach it. So I like the idea of like just continuing to build on what I've established so far and with the people that I've established it with. So my real objective for 2023 is continued growth and um for me personally, establishing a better relationship with myself as a friend. You know what I mean? Like being a better friend to myself, um, kind of working on enjoying my time with myself more. Because I feel like, I mean, I hope that my friends feel like I offer them a lot in terms of my time, my energy, and my thought. And when I think about people, I try to reach out to them. And I don't know that I offer that enough of that same energy to myself. So I would like to do that more this year.
Mm.
But in line with that, what I would also like to do, one of my big fish objectives this year, in addition to like just growing my network and like being having more of those kind of events at my house or with people like big groups of people that are in my tribe, is kind of utilizing what I would consider my platform, like through my production company BKW Imageworks, to create a platform for women of color in film, either writers, directors, actors, and producers. So I'd like to be play more of a producer role and help women of color develop their films, get their stories produced, and yeah, help kind of create vehicles for those women of color, especially in Atlanta, that I really respect and would like to see thrive.
That's
So,
great.
what is the heart behind that? When you like, if we were not to assume, right? Because it's
Mhm.
like, so what are the experiences and the things that you see that cause you to want to make that shift?
Well, number one for me is honestly learning. Like I feel like I through my friends who happen to be women of color over these past several years, especially in Atlanta, including you, Jan, I've learned so much about just the human experience from a female perspective, things that I would not have imagined on my own, just because I can't personally relate to those experiences on a on a day by day level. So um, the it just so happens that several of the films that I've been involved with since I got to Atlanta that were not my personal projects, like projects that I collaborated with people on as a cinematographer, or were by women of color who were telling their personal stories, or telling the personal stories of other people that were also women of color. I just shot late last year a slave narrative about uh, an enslaved woman who liberates herself and the other enslaved people on the plantation that she is on. Um, and for I don't know what it is about kind of what I've done up to this point, but I feel like a lot of the those types of projects that I've been involved with have been for women of color, not just Afro American women, but our friend Mariam Kalam, I shot a film for her a few years ago. That was kind of a personal narrative of her story. She's a Pakistani woman based in Atlanta, an incredible artist and filmmaker, and we're hoping to collaborate on a feature film in the near future. So having those films kind of under my banner, if you will, has kind of pointed me to the idea that, well, maybe this is something that I'm being called to do.
Mm.
If people like that are continuing to reach out to me to seek out
Hmm.
my eye to help them elevate their story, even though I'm not a woman and haven't had those experiences, um, then maybe there's an opportunity to offer the privilege that comes with being a man in this society to lift their stories up. If that's what they would like, and if that's what they need. So if I can do that, I'm happy to. I would love to do that because they're stories that I'm passionate about. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been involved in them to begin with.
And also, really quickly, that slave one, that liberating slave one that you're talking about, was directed by Leslie.
So it was actually directed by um, a woman from California named Shay Franklin. She
Mhm,
came on at the last second to kind of help take over the direction of it on set. I kind of directed the first day of filming,
mhm.
and so it's been like a real collaboration. And
Yeah,
Leslie served as the writer, executive producer, and the lead
Leslie
actor.
Black. Yeah.
Leslie Black. She was super
Hmm.
talented. She came to the party last night. It was a good time.
Oh, that's cool.
She's such an incredible supporter of me, and I'm always humbled by that. So
Yeah,
yeah, so that story that film will be coming out later this year, and I'm excited about that. It's in post right now. So
yeah,
um, yeah, it's a beautiful story, and I feel like those types of stories, I'm having conversations with people all the time now about how important it is to kind of really excavate those stories, especially in African American culture, um, to not fall into the idea that people are tired of seeing slave narratives, because I feel like there's kind of a gaslighting that is involved in that,
mm,
to make it seem as though those stories are something that people aren't interested in hearing because there have been too many of them or whatever. I just feel like there are almost an infinite number of those stories, and each of them is important, and they each play a part in telling the truth about the experience that so many of our ancestors have had in this country. And the only way out is really through. And I think that it's important that we have those conversations in the form of these artistic platforms to make sure that people know about these stories, because it's based on a real story, her film. So yeah, I'm excited to see that come to fruition, to kind of
hmm,
put it out there and support Leslie and support all the amazing people that helped
yeah.
us bring the film to life.
I had this thought,
Man.
but I know that I want to share it with you guys in a second. Hiram, what are your thoughts right now?
Well, Chris has got my mind spinning, and so I feel like I could probably go on a 45-minute dialogue rant, because a lot of the things he's saying I almost want to connect together with some of the thoughts I've been having recently. So you talked about
Oh, Hiram
you've
has
been
his quiet
learning
storm
from.
voice on, by the
Quiet
way.
Oh yeah, my
Storm.
quiet storm. You talked about you've been learning from these women that are compelling you to tell these stories, and you're learning more about their stories and their narrative. And so you want to take, your experience and, serve what they're creating. And I think that it's so strange, because something I've been wrestling with lately is, and you guys know I'm deep into psychology. I don't have a degree in it or anything, but I just love reading books about it. I love people. I love the way we think. And I've been thinking lately, like, why is it such a go-to for me? Like, for me, I found tremendous therapy in film. I feel like they raised me in so many ways. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's for all of us. So it's like, why do we read stories to children, right? And then all of a sudden, why is it so important, right? Is it just so they can read better? Is it so they understand more about ideas and culture and thought? And then at what point does it transition to just, we still tell ourselves stories? That's why we pay for Netflix, all these different things,
Hmm.
right? Like, we sit down on a weekly basis just to take a couple hours of, like, I've had a crazy day at work, I'm stressed, I get home, I'm like, pour a glass of wine or whiskey, and I'm like, just tell me a story. Someone tell me a story that captivates my mind, that changes the way I think about the world and perceive things. And I find that the narrative of those stories, sometimes they match what I'm going through, right? So if I'm going through a difficult season of persuasion or different things, like I'll look at things that are more like like House of Cards or something like that, where it's like there's always politics going on. Or a great one this year was The Recruit. So good,
I
such
tried to
great
watch that.
psychological writing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Sorry.
I found it fantastic. I found it fantastic. You might have been watching it because that lead is so attractive. I was watching it because the story was very, very compelling. But so to kind of harken it back to what Chris was saying, like, I'm thinking about, like, well, why do we submit ourselves to stories? And so it's weird, because I've also been thinking about this other concept that's coming from some business lectures that I've been taking, and the idea of entrepreneurship being that to be excellent in your industry, you have to outlearn your competitors. It is an idea
Mm.
of how fast can you learn and grow, and can you outlearn and grow everyone else. But I think it also applies to our industry, right? To be excellent is something you have to outlearn and grow. And when I think about, like, John Favreau and the trajectory he's been in the last 10 years, where it's just like, and even implementing so well, like the volume into Mandalorian and all those things. Like that man is just learning and growing around excellent people constantly and
Right.
bending the way that we tell stories. And so going back to you learning from these other individuals and then also submitting your technical skill to teach them what you know or whatever it may be or facilitate what they're doing, it's all the same, because it's like, and even like something that sparked my mind this year, and I haven't done a ton of research into it. I don't know who owns the rights, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the, going back to what you're saying about, slave stories, are people still interested, et cetera. Because sometimes you do see like, even Will Smith, just released a film this year, and it's like, oh, well, what is it going to be? Am I going to watch it? Is it the same old thing? Am I going to have a hard time? Like if it was like it's, I take it with a grain of salt. Even like one of the most beautiful films I've ever watched is The Pianist, and I watched it
Hmm.
once because it was so goddamn hard. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep.
And so it's very similar sometimes with slaves films, where it's like, man, I want to submit myself to this narrative so I understand it deeper, and I want to learn and grow from it. But it can be so hard to change and grow. And what's the balance? But this year I've been just stuck on how badass of a woman Harriet Tubman was,
Yeah.
and how she was more ferocious and more violent and more, I shouldn't say violent per se, but willing to be violent and more of a beast than any other man at that time. And the way that she led and freed so many slaves, and like I feel like that story, it's not that it hasn't been told well, it's that I would like to see more people tell that story.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's like, what story has yet to be told, or what story do we all know that needs to be told more accurately or in a different way? Whether it be something like Save It Private Ryan transitioning into what's the Brothers Soldier one?
Band of
Band of
Brothers.
Brothers.
Band of
Like,
Brothers. Yeah.
yeah, like those, like they're so parallel, but they're such different stories. That it's such a
Right.
deeper, closer look. So anyway, going back to just thinking about, it's strange to think that maybe as filmmakers we are expert storytellers, but also maybe as filmmakers we are expert educators, and we are also students ourselves of the stories we tell. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's like, what are we? So that, I think of that one time that I think it was on the podcast or it was in a class when Jan, and I think it might have been in the Atlanta Film Society class that we did, where you guys were explaining your process and approaching that the short that you guys did, the fire one, what's that called, Soulfire.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And you were talking about going to the place where you got the award, the World War II award or medal, in the case, and you're talking to this guy and he knew all this information, and all of you were absorbing and gleaning from the history of what the story you were about to tell. You know what I mean? And so you're shaping your own characters and your own thought processes in order to tell a better story, to tell a better story to other people. And it's just like the way that all layers on itself, and all we're doing is we're teaching each other. We're just talking to each other, and everything that we're doing, we're saying, hey, are you willing to go on this ride psychologically through this film and be stirred emotionally and compelled and changed and challenged and grown? So yeah, I think that's which I'll segue that into my yearly goals if you.
Yeah. Let's do
I,
it.
I
Yeah.
I think, so that's where I find myself. I think so psychologically, I think it's very, very difficult for creatives to approach the new year. The reason being is that people that are high in openness tend to be very pan-like. They're spread across many, many facets because everything brings them emotional salience, right? And so they have trouble grounding identity. And even if they do, very quickly something else will incite. So like the temptation coming toward the end of the year is, well, am I going to take on, cross-country skiing and sewing, this year? Because
Hmm.
all of this, if I see enough information on it, I get excited.
Right.
And one of the things I learned years ago is it's like I can't do that. I have to stay in the same channel. And luckily for me, filmmaking can be about anything, and so stay there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can be about doctors sometimes. It can be about slavery. It can be about anything, just the normal everyday life. And so in approaching the new year, I try not to think about it in the same way, because I think somewhat years ago, I I didn't want to think about things in a year span. I started thinking in longer terms.
Hmm.
And so the year end becomes a refining process, not a reset. I don't want to change too much. What I want to do is go, what goals did I have last year? Where did they fall and fail? And how can I either pick them back up or maintain the same consistency? So for example, I have since 2017 read 52 books a year. That's not true. The first couple of years it was 22 books, 24 books, and then we've slowly increased, right? But I think I'm at capacity. I don't think I could read more books, and sometimes I'll read the same book 5 times, right? And so I have my list of about 30 books so far, and that are across the span of business and psychology and a handful of film books, so on. And it's just like trying to make sure that I maintain that, because it's the little habits that change our lives. And then think about, well, what are the small things as life becomes easier, as it becomes easier to do the same thing that I did last year, but now I'm hopefully doing it more proficiently. How do I not add some big tremendous thing to it, but all the little things that, I might have wanted to pick up, just the little habits of, like, so a gym is a great example. Everyone wants to load up the gym and in January and go all the way, and they're gone by February. And I see the same thing every year because I've been going to the gym since I was 15, right? And to me, it's not like I need to go to the gym in 2023. You know what I mean? It's I need to maintain going to the gym for the lifestyle, and it has nothing to do with marker of a year. And if you want to have a beach body in August, you need to start the August before. You know what I mean? And make sure that you're keeping it going all winter long.
Exactly.
Um,
Right.
and so I don't know, for me looking at this year, it's like there are things that I've mastered in career and certain elements. And now I'm looking at the little things that I dropped off in order to master them. And I just want to pick them back up. Spending a few more hours on the phone with mom each week and just checking in. How are you doing? What's going on? Spending a few more times going out to dinner and laughing, you know what I mean? Because I've been working so hard. And then also taking a step back to enjoy my job, because I think as all of us, as we get busy, as we get into bigger projects, it becomes very stressful, it becomes very more complex. There's always an X factor of something new that you're integrating and making sure that it adapts well and it works well and the people are working well. And for me, it's like, I don't want to get away from those moments when you just get to hold a camera. You know what I mean? I don't
Right.
want to get away from those moments where you get to just step back and just watch what's unveiling. And then maybe sometimes take your expertise, like Chris is talking about, and go help some people. Because it's like there's no point in going and becoming such an expert if you can't look at who could utilize something amazing, who's worth their story being told so that you can teach other people, so to speak, And so for me, like, I'm looking at this year and it's already jam-packed. It's already, thought out and planned, and I'm thinking, how can I just maintain what I'm doing and relax a little more in it, and pick up those small habits of taking a walk on a Sunday or being on the podcast and being present, not just being professional, not just being like, we're here to have fun and to enjoy life, and life is so frail and brief, and nothing's promised or guaranteed. It's like, how can I pick up the little habits and make sure that I'm staying healthy and doing well and living the best that I can within the capacity of a human?
Yeah.
So,
Being present, man. Being present.
yeah.
All about that. Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's a big part of, what I think helps to motivate me to want to spend time with the people that I know are helping me be present, is just like you said, laughing and loving, and being inspired by that energy. And it feeds into everything. All the things that I really care about is just it all comes back to being present. And I feel like I've started to think more and more short term on balance than I do long term, because I feel like for me personally, earlier on in my life and career, when I spent too much time thinking long term, I get overwhelmed really easily. Because even like writing a script, like you go to I went to film school and was in the writing class, and the holy grail was to write a feature film at that time, right? So to start writing a feature film, when you're on your writing application, you just have that cursor at the beginning of that first page, that blank, overbearing first page. How do you get past the idea of getting to the credits? You know what I mean? From nothing. So one of the things that helped me in writing was breaking it down into increments. The idea of just taking the big idea that you have for this story and bring it down into a beginning, a middle, and end. Simple as that. And then you take that beginning portion and you break that down to a beginning, a middle, and end. And then, over time, as you do that throughout the process, you've just got all these little stories, which is what every film is. It's every sequence is a little story. And then every scene in that sequence is a little story. And then every conversation in every scene is its own little story. And if you think about it like that, for me, it has helped open my mind to to thinking about each moment in a film being its own moment, and then they link together, just like life. That's how life works. We kind of package our lives in little stories, even though they're always continuous. You know what I mean? There is no separating one moment from another. It's fluid. We don't often think about it that way, but that's the truth. Because like you said, Harim, we are storytellers. We want to be told stories. We want to tell our stories all the time. So yeah, I think about, writing in little stories. That helps me a lot. So being present, being in the moment, thinking about things in like the super short term about what's going to feel good for me and the people around me right now has helped me a lot, just to avoid that sense of overwhelm, and actually get things done. Like that's really my goal, is to be productive and thinking in like the more immediate terms, and then linking those kind of immediate objectives back to back, one to another, has really helped me be a little bit more productive. So I want to dive more into that thought process this year and allow that to help me grow and build even more.
Man, director Chris is starting to talk more like a producer every day. I tell you
Man,
what.
it feels good. Producing is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
and Harim,
Yeah.
you talk about this, speak to this really well. I mean, the idea of being productive, that feeling, that kind of high that you get when you accomplish a task as a producer with your hands in every aspect of a film, of a project, checking things off that box as you're going along, that feeling is addictive. And especially when you are in service to something that you believe in, something that someone else has, helped you kind of buy into, maybe. It's like, for example, Leslie's film, she was so passionate about it from the beginning. She
Yeah.
reached out to me a long time ago, sent me the script, and I gave her my suggestions. And, I told her I would love to do it. I had to push the dates, and she just kept pushing along with me. And I was like, listen, I really want you to make your movie. I really don't want you to hold out just for me, because you can do this film really well. I appreciate that you want me to be a part of it, but I don't want you to totally put it on the back burner just because of my schedule conflicts. But she rolled with me, man. So every time I had to push, she went along, and she pushed, and we got it done. So that her kind of, passion for wanting to collaborate with me really inspired me to want to kind of take that buy-in and really help to push that wheel forward for her, and create the, accomplishment of all the little tasks that it takes to get to set, and then on set, the checking off of the list of all the things that we need in order to tell the story the way that we want to tell it. And now that we're in post, the same things, all the little steps, and those little steps add up. And especially when it's in service of someone else or someone else's story, that sense of accomplishment that you get in that producer level is really, really powerful.
Gosh, you make me want to go on a rant right now, because it's like, and I don't even, you're articulating it so well, because, I was having this discussion this week with a friend where being a producer, and there's, the Hollywood politics, there's all these different things, but like being a producer in its own right is a state of humility, right? Obviously that you can make a large margin, you can get paid very well, you work excessively hard, but at the same time, when the product is finished, you should be in the most humble position because your team succeeded, right? And it's like you're the closest to the inspiring fire, and the same, like, because everything that's supposed to take, you're collaborating, you're helping, but then you're synergistically tying in everything else that those individuals don't need to think about. It's like you're just giving them just enough information to do what they do exceedingly well. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, it's like you have this tremendous finished product, and what's so crazy is sometimes it feels like you had nothing to do with it, but you touched everything. Right. And you just got to watch everyone blossom together, and you're sitting in awe of like, look how incredible it is when I don't do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, because obviously you do a lot of upfront work, but it's all like you're doing the boring and the mundane for people to accelerate what they're excellent at.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then the reward of that is you get to see people's finest sides. And
Exactly.
It's really, really cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's heavy, man.
Yeah. I love the way you
Yeah, it
guys
might be
are.
Yeah, it's like the best description of producer that we've kind of hit on, because I'm always like summarizing it, but like I think emotionally that there's no replacement for that reward, because especially at the end of the day, producers are creatives. And so
Yeah.
it's not like, when I was in construction, it's like, yeah, we built an amazing house and it's beautiful, but like it doesn't hit that creative mark.
Hmm.
But, when I kind of hold back a lot of my creative energy and juices and become reliable and consistent and utilize network and resources and analyze who's the perfect fit personality wise and specialty wise and technically, and then bring all those people together and allow them to do what they do best and sit back and watch the magic unfold, that synergistic creativity, and knowing that you had a small part in cultivating it, but you get zero credit. There's something I love about that. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love the way you guys are talking about this. It makes my heart so happy. Just the way that you're talking about art and your hearts, and it brings me to tears because it makes me think about, this podcast and kind of getting to the root and the deepness of who we are as artists and why we do what we do. So it's, I don't know, super exciting to me.
Well, what are your
Um,
goals for 2023?
well, it's so funny, like listening to you guys, and I literally hope I don't break down crying because I've realized about myself. Number one, I love surprises. And then when I am surprised, I start laughing and start crying. I realize that when I'm about to do the ugly cry, I start laughing first. And I don't know why. So,
More laughter, please. I
so
don't know that we've had a lot of conversations where you don't announce that you're about to cry. So I want you to know,
Exactly.
sometimes it seems like a bluff.
Right.
Sometimes I think our podcast listener deserve to see a couple tears. So anyway,
I think the
continue where you're
subtitle for
going.
this podcast should be "I'm about to cry."
I'm really proud to have you guys here and your
Why
heart.
do we not think of that as a name? Like the
Exactly.
podcast should
I'm
just
about
be
to cry.
named "I'm About to Cry."
Your hearts as men and your hearts as creatives. I'm just so happy to go on this journey with you. Yeah, so I wrote down all my thoughts. So if you see me with my phone, that's why, because I wrote them down. I don't know.
You're not on Tinder, you mean?
No. Okay, so what's so funny is hearing you guys talk about being present. And I thought about that a lot, and I thought I'm always in the reverse. I feel like I'm not always. I feel like I definitely do things way ahead of when other people do them. I think for the most of my career, I was more concerned about being present and about love, and kind of the revelations and conversations that I've had that have come crashing down on me the past couple of days that I've had for the past maybe 2 years has been that I am still that, but something's calling me to be more, you know? And so what I wrote down here was that change is hard. Change is definitely hard. But I feel like I'm being called to a new level, so I have to accept that change. I think that when I was a kid, we used to move every year on my birthday. And so my mom was like, you can't get
It's you just like villain origins, like straight out the
Exactly.
game. That sounds like absolute torture. It wasn't even like sometimes, it was like every year on my birthday. We were like, you know what? We have no security or establishment or home here. We
Listen,
don't belong here.
It
We're
was
out.
every year for my middle, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I moved on my birthday, and
Wow.
so I had to like conquer my fear and make new friends. And I think that's why a lot of times I have anxiety now. I have had anxiety in the past about like going in front of crowds and doing all this stuff because it just takes me back to people being like, "Who's that? What's your name? Jana Latte?" You know what I mean? Just such embarrassment.
And that's when she became the birthday killer.
No. So, okay. So, and I have these bullet points, but basically I was listening to I've number one, Harim has helped me so much as a friend. And obviously you, Chris, too, but my new relationship with Harim the past year and a half being in Nashville, not only have he and Courtney just kind of become family, but he's helped me a lot in terms of changing my mindset. And so I think that's why I think that's why the word reset meant so much, or it resonated with me because I think it was a reset of the mind that I have started to stumble upon.
Mhm.
I think for a long time, when I was talking to Hayram about the business, when I was talking to him about who I am, I'm like, this is who I am, but I'm open to change and growth. But the reality is I didn't know what change and growth actually meant. You know, like I was like I know change, like a worm turns into a butterfly, right? Like you see a
Or a
metamorphosis.
caterpillar.
Caterpillars too, but
Yeah.
you said a
Right,
worm.
sorry.
But
Yeah.
I
but
did,
Let's
I
let's
yes,
did.
start you off. Let's start you off as a
let's.
caterpillar instead of a worm this time
No,
around.
no. But I'm saying like just what I realized when I saw change in growth, my mom, when I was a kid, my mom was always like, you can't get stagnant. So she changed all the time. And I think in that, I was always looking for a sense of stability. So I never changed. You know, I only changed when I felt like the Lord was calling me to, like moving to Tennessee or something like that, you know? But sorry, I lost my, sorry.
Talking about resetting and what that has really meant for you.
Yeah. Um, so when you see change, you see people on Instagram going through Instagram reels, like losing weight, you know, over like a period of time. And so you see it as a montage all the time. And to me, change meant that whatever security that I had made for myself, I would no longer have, and it was very scary, you know. But what I've realized through my friendship with Harim is that change and growth are good. It shows that you are, I guess, leveling up, so to speak, in so many ways in your life to have the best life that you can, right? And I don't know if that's the best explanation for it. I don't know how my bullet points are about to come out right now, but
Go for
I,
it.
I just know that I can have a tendency to shy away from conflict a lot. And earlier, Chris, you were talking about like having writing a script is like having a dialogue or a conversation or something like that, right? That's where you were. And so what I learned about conflict, what Harim taught me about conflict is the ability, is an opportunity to lean in and to lean in and to learn how to love people better. And what I realized about conflict and about my people pleasing nature is that like conflict is really a conversation. And so the past couple of days, I've had some conflict with other people. Like I did a job for a guy and he was supposed to pay my invoice, right? Like I sent him an invoice and he was supposed to pay it. And I saw him and talked to him 3 different times and he never mentioned the invoice and he never paid me. And my old myself was like, well, that's okay. It's just money. You know what I mean? But
I love the voice you selected to your own
Exactly.
person. Yourself there. Okay. Anyway, continuing.
but I was just like, no, I have to face this conflict because number one, I deserve it. I
Right.
did the work. I deserve the money, and I don't have to do a workaround to try and figure out the best way that he feels comfortable. I
Yeah.
have every right to speak what I feel is bothering me on the inside because if I hold it in, then I'm the only one that has to deal with it. So I reached out to him and I reached out about the potential job, and he paid me that day and he wants to have a meeting. And so
Yeah.
I started to see these rewards and results from all the things that I had been listening to just about resolving conflict. And I started to see it in the past couple of days. And so that was like kind of like I guess if we're using like a champagne bottle, you know, and they like chip and it's like almost about to pop or whatever. And so that was like the first chip. And then
I just hear you playing a Rihanna song. Bitch, better have my money.
That's a
no.
good song.
It's a fucking great song.
That'll get me hyped up. They should play that in every
Hey.
business's accounts
Yeah.
payable. Just
Absolutely.
So I was listening
for accounts
to
receivable, I guess.
Hmm.
I was listening to the sermon today, and he was talking about change and growth. And so these are some of my bullet points. He said a thing where he said, you're a good person. You've got a better heart than you have habits, which I thought was really profound because in my mind, especially like with this whole thing of, hey, Ram, just trying to help me with the school and, you know, just help me as a friend. Me being like, I don't want to be on a schedule. I'm free. You know what I mean? Like I have all these ideas. I can do what I want, blah, blah. And I realized that really success is consistency.
Yeah, bro.
You know,
Yep.
it's like I could be a free artist, but is that what I've been telling myself that I am? Because one of the other things he said was, hold on. Like, so basically the things that you've been telling yourself that you are, but that doesn't mean that's your default. It doesn't mean those are your decisions.
Hmm.
you know? And so I know it
Damn,
was,
that sounds like an epiphany of self-awareness.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was really great. And so what it made me think about was my default is I'm an artist. I don't want to be tied down. I'm free. But he said, but you can be like, I can be consistent and dedicated when I'm on a job. You know what I mean? I can be
Hmm.
consistent and dedicated in my relationships. So why would I not be that way in the things that I really love and desire and I'm trying to build? You know?
Right.
So to me, it's just a mindset shift. And so that, okay, so there are two things. I have my goals, but then I have the things that I've been telling the lies about myself, right?
Hmm.
So the lies about myself were basically like about my career, right? Like I'm talented and I have it's all about just being with the people that you love and stuff like that. But if I don't actually like put myself out there as a director and actually do the work cuz I felt like not good enough. So not good enough to reach out to production companies or to say, hey, I'm here, I'm a director, I can do. And I was in the comfort zone of just loving the people around me, being present and being a director there. It robs the people that are my future of what the Lord, I feel like, has put in me to execute. Right. So my number one thing is my number one goal is putting myself out there and actually reaching out to companies and pursuing my career and not just sitting in the comfort of, well, everybody knows I'm a director and I like to direct. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
Number two is to, so a lot of times, and tell me if this is too long. I don't know.
No, can't be too long.
Keep
We're in
going.
it.
A lot of times I was like, I'm afraid to be a leader. That I don't think that I'm a good leader. That I think that I'm a good leader in the short term, but I don't know about the long term. And I think that was my default because that's what kept me comfortable. But in doing the podcast and in doing the school and in my friendships and stuff, it's just calling me to be higher that doesn't have to be my decision. And
Right.
that I can lead people well. I just have to find the little increments on how to do it and to who to do it with. And so that's why I'm so thankful and blessed to be able to do it with you guys, where you do call me higher and you don't allow me to sit in a place of comfort. And I don't know if that comes from being a creative or whatever, or past traumas or whatever. But my second goal is to passionately grow our community and grow the school and grow the podcast in a way that still settles on the places where I feel like it's most important to be present and to love others, but in an aggressive way to where the world needs to hear what we have to say. You know?
Damn.
And then the third thing, which is very personal for me, and then I'll get to the last point. Um,
Boy,
the
the third thing's the personal thing. Man, I thought we were laying it all out.
Exactly.
Well, and
I'm
Chris,
ready.
the third thing is for a long time, and you know, we all have trauma, we all have things, and which try and stop us from seeing our potential. The greatest potential for me that I feel like I have is that God is in me. So no matter where I go, that's where success and potential will be. Um, and so for a long time, I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like to be in front of the camera. I don't like to do, you know, I'm like, I don't do social media. Well, why not? You know what I mean? Like, why not? And so I think the third goal for me is I just always assumed, and I still believe this, that people love the hearts of people. And that, and I don't know how to say all of this, but like that the outside doesn't matter because it's about the hearts of the people, right? But I want to quit telling that narrative to myself that beauty is only inside, where really it's important to take care of your mind and your body and
Mm.
your soul. And so for me, kind of getting back into, like, I am going to start weightlifting, which I'm really excited about. But I actually, like, the pastor was like, you know, he's been working out for 8 years, and when he first started, he was like, I'm not a gym person. But then he's been going to the gym every day for 8 years, 5 days a week. He's like, well, actually, I am a gym person, right?
Right.
And when I was a kid, my mom and dad, I used to stay inside all the time. My aunt used to have to push me outside and lock the door so that I would actually go outside, and I would climb this tree and just tell stories to myself, which is a whole nother story. But
That's a fantastic story.
but what I learned about myself is I love being outside. I love moving my body. I love pushing myself. And so the comfort zone is kind of be locked up in this body and this mindset that taking care of yourself doesn't matter because it's about the heart. But the reality is to be this new mindset, this new me is about accepting that that's a beautiful part of yourself as well. And that if you take care of yourself, you're essentially taking care of those around you as well. Yeah. So my third goal is, getting into the gym and not falling off like the people that Harim says he sees.
I love seeing him every January, though. It's nice to be like, oh, yeah, I recognize you from last year.
Right.
No, I want to note on that if I can. I mean, unless you got more.
I just have one more thing.
Yeah, do it.
This part really stuck out to me, and this part might make me really cry, is that I realized that as human beings, we can say, I've been through this, this is who I am, this is the default who I am, blah, blah, blah. But you have three choices, I feel like, in that scenario where we lay our stuff out there, right? Like, I'm not an early morning person, right? Or whatever your thing is that, number one, you can say that in community, you can say that to another person. Say to Harim, I don't like to run. That's just, and Harim can take that information and leave me there and be like, okay, yeah, you don't like to run. I'm going to go run. And he leaves me there and I have to deal with the consequences of that. The second place that you can be is that you both stay where you are. And Harim's like, yeah, you don't like to run. And I'm like, yeah, I don't like to run. And I stay there and I never run. But the third thing that I feel for this community and for all of us is that, and also when you do that, you make that thing your ceiling and you can never reach above it, right? Mm-hmm. But the third option that I love and I put out there for everyone out there is that those things, when done in community, can be your floor. And that together, you can run together and there's nowhere to go but up. And that becomes then like you can grow from there. You take the stairs together, I guess is the idea. I said that poorly, probably because I was about to bawl. But those are my thoughts, I guess.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Man, I really appreciate your vulnerability and all of that.
Yeah.
Because I think, it does, it humbles me. And it's weird because it's like, you're attributing me to being a helpful part of this journey and thought process and, changing your mind. But at the same time, I think, we all, first off, I think the ability to realize, to be self-aware enough to have some thoughts about yourself is profound. That's critical thinking, right? Because most people think that they think, but then the thoughts are just appearing in their mind. So to take two thoughts and make them argue with each other and realize that one of them might be wrong and let's argue it out further is mind-blowing. But I think it's strange because I think there's a lot of things where, there's some muddiness to. It's like even talking about, don't get stagnant or change, right? As far as like it was related to moving, even to Nashville. And it's like sometimes you can change your environment to throttle or to eradicate behaviors and options. But at the same time, sometimes you can move and be the same person. Like if someone handed me $3 million right now, I'd be the same guy, you know what I mean? And I would just have a little more money, but it would just exaggerate who I am. I don't think it would change me.
Right.
And so it's like the journey of self-growth and self-change, I want to note to our listeners, because I think if there's anyone thinking that change isn't one of the most painfully impossible things to do, whenever you're endeavoring to a new category of falsity, like I see that I should change here and I want to grow, for example, the gym or anything, if you have no competency in that area or you failed multiple times, it's like standing at the edge of a cliff. And it takes so much faith and courage to believe that this thing carried out over a course of time will change your life incrementally. Because when the resistance hits, it's so much easier to default away from pain. But the oddest thing is that pain, and it's weird, I don't know if this is a perfect analogy to what you were saying, but something I've been realizing this week, and you guys know a good bit about my history, and we'll probably get more into that in the future, but, I'm a former quadriplegic, used to be a pretty athletic guy, and now I'm going to the gym quite regularly. Um, and it's been my recovery process. At one point, I was told I was not going to be able to walk again, all these things. But I go to the gym to remind myself how weak I am. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I go to the gym to take my tiny dumbbells and to lift them and to just be angry and to remember there's hope and you're not where you yet should be. And if I
Right.
don't go to the gym, I'll get stagnant and comfortable and more dissatisfied, and more, man, things feel like they're really off the rails. Man, I don't feel mentally put together. I don't like who I am. I don't like the way I look. I'm self-conscious, you know what I mean? But then when I go to the gym and I face my fear, I have the discipline of self-love to say, look at me. I'm not who I want to be. I'm weak right now. And I'm weak every day of the week. And
Mm-hmm.
here I am going through reminding myself how I can. Then once every month and a half, I go, oh my gosh, I went up 5 pounds in each hand. Look at that. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. That's so
But I
dope.
think
That's so
the
dope.
journey of reminding yourself you're weak, is that reset. It's that improvement of noticing something and saying like, this isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah. And that's what I would just add to that is I think, you know, a kind of a synonym for weak in this situation, in this context, could be human. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
remind myself of how human I am. So like one of the things that I do with that is being present, right? Is the idea of being present, not only like in the moment that you're in, but also in the feelings, like your humanity, and being open to kind of stepping outside yourself in a moment where you feel a feeling that you attribute to being like negative, like pain or fear, right? Or anger even. And like watching yourself have that experience and be like, wow, Chris, me standing outside myself, watching myself feelings like Chris is feeling a certain type of way right now. And that's amazing. As if I'm like watching myself, as the protagonist of my story, right? And like even right now, like what I imagine, I think ahead to when we wrap up this podcast, because this has been like a really profound one for us. I imagine the melancholy that I'll feel when we hang up, we leave this meeting, and it's just going to be me in my empty hotel room, right? Without you guys. And I'm going to feel like a certain type of way about it. And right now, I'm actively allowing myself to look forward to that feeling of melancholy because that feeling is a human feeling. And that's fucking dope. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel that. I don't know if like blades of grass feel melancholy. I don't know if rocks feel melancholy. I know I do. I know people do, and that's what I want to see. Those are the things that I relate to when I watch the films I love, is how deeply I relate to that feeling, and I'm actually about to experience it, and I look forward to that. I look forward to experiencing that quote unquote weakness as an example of what it means to be human, and those
Mm.
feelings that I associate with my relationships or anything that any conflict that I have about getting paid. You know what I mean? Like those feelings of fear that I will have when it comes to confronting those conflict moments. I try to look forward to those
Hmm.
feelings
Yeah.
as me having those human experiences that are unique to being human and to being this form of human in Chris Anthony Hamilton. Like
Yeah.
that's magic to me. I try to look forward to all of those moments of humanity in my own life and experience and be present in them.
And really quickly, like I think three things. When you said blades of grass, I thought you meant blades of glory.
Naturally, sure. Naturally, you thought that.
But also, I think that's what's so great about.
Typical Jan. She's wiping her tears talking about
Typical.
blades of glory.
Yes, complete
uh,
non sequitur to an incredible
well,
Will Ferrell film.
uh,
He would be
but
proud.
but I think that's what makes it so great to have this community is the ability to be vulnerable and to be present and to talk about. That's what I mean about like in that last part of the third choice is that we can all leave each other social, at least in social media times, like if this person's toxic, leave them. It's like all of that
Right.
has its place, but I think we're in a space and time where it's okay to grow with others, even if they're at a place where they could be really broken. Okay, let's talk, let's say the brokenness, let's say it's there, and then let's go together to a new place.
Yeah.
And so I think when I think about the school, when I think about the podcast, when I think about my relationship with you guys as a whole, I think that's where I want to live in life, is to walk with people and the people that are willing to grow, to walk with them, to come to a better desired end, you know? And then also what I learned about conflict also is that to me, conflict is a conversation. I'm going to say what I feel, and then Chris is going to respond with what he feels.
Wow, why'd you default to me right away about
Because I'm
conflict?
looking at you. Because I'm
Yeah,
looking
okay.
at you.
Okay.
Chris is going to
Yeah,
Because
say,
if
was
she
like
defaulted to
right
me,
there.
if she defaulted to me, it'd be too obvious. We argue all the time.
Chris
you were
is
the
gonna-
you were
I
the
see where I
neutral
stand.
example in that
I
example.
see where I stand. I get it.
Chris is going to say what he's going to say. And then I am going to say, then I'm going to respond to it. Like that has taken the pressure off of me in terms of conflict. Because before I think conflict, you have conflict with somebody and then it's all over. Either they leave or there's this huge fight or whatever. But what I realize is if you just hold the space, you're both human beings. It's just a conversation. And then I think so that's the little increments for you, like telling story. That's for me with conflict. I use story in that way. Like,
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
yeah.
Excellent. Wow.
Um, Harim, did you have any thoughts before I said my
Yeah.
closing?
Well, no, I was thinking about how accurate the conflict statement is because it's like, because when you're having conflict with someone, you're holding both of you accountable to your beliefs. And the reason there might be a disagreement is because people have a different facet of perspective of how they believe the world works, and they're holding it up against what's ever going on. So usually when there is conflict, both people believe that they're in the right relatively, otherwise there wouldn't be conflict, right? And so what's challenging is it's when you're having conflict, you're challenging the other person's belief structure and being willing to forego both of yours for the result of a better outcome. And for people that aren't willing to change, or if they're too afraid, or if it's too damaging, or if it's too deep, or if you're pushing too hard, it's like then the conflict will sever something, it'll break something. But it's the courage and the faith and the love to risk what is present for something greater that makes the conflict so worth it. You know what I mean? Especially if you approach it in that way. If it's not just conflicts for conflict's sake, but valuing yourself and valuing that person enough to address things for a readjustment of change of perspective,
Yeah.
And I think that's so it's hard because I think not always is conflict easy, especially when it gets to the the way businesses resolve conflict is through lawyers and through litigation, and that's a way of communication. It's a way of distancing through professionalism and deep literature and codes and statutes and all that stuff. I don't know, I don't know that language, but like, it's like a very complex form of conflict resolution, but it happens in stages and timing. And then sometimes, you go back to court or whatever. And so I think the hardest thing to gauge in that is the initial conflict is wonderful and it is an opportunity to make the world a better place. But if it fails, you can do two things. You can reassess how you could have approached it on the best interest of both the parties involved, right? And reassess how you go about conflict resolution, right? And how you go about progressing people because there are failed conflicts. And then the second thing is, if it fails, you can relieve yourself of the guilt of having been a coward. You know what I mean? Of having let it go, because there's this quote by, I think, Jordan Peterson that is, conflict deferred is conflict multiplied.
Yeah.
And so the longer you let that sit and fester, the worse, the more of a big deal, the more likely you are to blow up and diffuse and lose
Right.
the relationship is. And so, having, lots of micro arguments are a beautiful cultivation of, and even in a sense, like there might be some small disagreements in this podcast where it's like it's calling all of us further forward. We're navigating the ambiguity of life together through ideas and conversation to hope that by the time we say, okay, everyone, that's the Heartbeat Film Podcast, thank you so much, that we all become better people just by listening to each other's stories and thoughts and ideas. And so, I would say, the speed at which you address conflict is such a nuanced, soft skill, but the idea of not being willing to just let it go because you don't love enough, that's the worst thing that could possibly ever happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that makes me think to the experience that you and I had, Aaron, recently of having to
Mm,
walk away from a job, a
Mm.
production,
yeah.
because we could see the conflict coming, and it wasn't worth not confronting it head on and heading it off, um, and doing what we knew was going to be right for everybody involved in the end. And I've it's every now and again I do think about it because I struggle a lot with conflict.
Mm,
And I honestly feel like if it wasn't for you, Harem, if I hadn't had you there during that conversation, kind of helping to kind of shepherd us through that experience, I might have just gone along, you know what I mean? And kind of allowed myself to continue to be a part of a situation that I didn't think was going to be in my best interest or even their best interests. Um, so I'm grateful to have had you, and kind of us together working in tandem to take on that conflict in a way that I think was really productive and that was, as ideal as it could have been in the situation that we were facing. Um, so yeah, man, I admire you so much. I admire Jan so much also
thank
for
you.
always kind of searching for what will serve everybody the best, and just hopefully reach everybody's heart in the way that everybody comes out better, having dealt with it in the way that was honest and open and fearless. And that's something I'm working on all the time, and it's a process for sure.
Yeah, and it's because as we talk about it, I really appreciate your words, and I was glad to be there with you. I think, when I think about it, it's just for both of us in our conversations leading up to the conflict, and it was a conflict, but it was a relief for everyone, hopefully involved and in the best course of action for everyone's interest, and kind of an unemotional love, so to speak, where it's just like, hey, like, given everyone's collective experience, this is the foresight that might happen. Can we just all agree that that might be a possibility, and then let's just kind of redirect? And I think a lot of it just comes from experience because I've just made so many freaking mistakes, and I've
Yep.
and there's nothing more heartbreaking than leading people down a road. And so as a producer, you have to become this like, it's not everyone's attribute, but like this this conflict master where it's just like, I'm going to forget all of my emotions and just logically and critically, what do these people need to hear?
Right.
Right. And and I think, and providing options, because as we had discussed, prior to some of that confrontation, it was just like, I let you know that I was willing to go to war with you, and I was willing to go to war with you to end the war. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
whatever you need, whatever you need. I have your back, because it's like I also felt that my experience could help guide through it the best. And I feel like that would have made me a better person as well. And but ultimately, it was just like, I've had to, kick pop prostitutes off a set and stuff, and do a lot of very awkward, uncomfortable things. And then you come back. It's like there's this. I guess we'll go into that story because it might be fun, right? There's one time we were
Have to.
filming a music
Have to.
video.
Can't
We
set that
were
up
filming a
enough to follow
music
through.
video, and it was we were having a lot of fun. And I was the producer, and a car off in the distance, in the middle of our shot. That was a period piece, backed their tail lights up against a fence. And we were in a closed property, gated off, all this stuff. And like, it was on the corner of a building, so they couldn't see us, but we could see their taillights, and the taillights didn't match the shot, and obviously it wasn't working. So, it was just awkward because it was in complete pitch black. And so I took a flashlight, and I was like, all right, I'm out, get ready to roll, blah, 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 radio as soon as I get there.
I
So I got to
love this
walk
so
out the
much.
gate and around the whole thing. And this is in a not delightful part of it. That's my fault because I grabbed the location at an affordable price. But anyway, um, stretching budgets.
Yep.
I'm producing. And so I walk around the building, I have this flashlight, and I'm just like, my heart's thumping. I don't have a gun on me, I'm nothing. I'm just like, but I got to take care of this. So I turn the corner, and there's this like 40-something-year-old man in a car with like a 20-year-old something woman. And it's obvious. It's just like, I shine the flashlight, and I tried to do the cop thing where I keep the light up so it's like you can't see me, but And so I have a very aggressive, direct conversation where this guy is refusing to leave. And I said, look, I own this building in back. I lied. I own this building. I'm going to call the police. I need you to leave now. That's the only option. Good luck, drive or don't. Right? And she was like, begging him, please, let's leave, blah, 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 blah. And it goes by in a blur. I believe it lasted quite a few minutes, and there was quite a bit of argumentative, and I tried to just maintain the controlling posture. And then the guy eventually left. And I remember, like, I took a moment, there's that moment where the conflict is resolved and diffused, and I turn the building back. I'm relocking the gate as I'm going back into where everyone's set. I can hear them laughing and giggling and talking. They had no idea what just happened, and that I threatened this guy.
And you're like shaking in your boots.
Yeah.
Like.
So I had to do that thing where it's like I'm about to walk the corner again, and I just need to relieve all that emotion and come back and, oh, it was joy. Don't worry about it. Yeah, they were just lost. Blah blah blah. And we're gonna roll and just like hold that emotion and not tell them until we're wrapped. You know what I mean?
Right.
No one needs to know this stuff.
Exactly.
And it's not that it was that big a deal, but I needed to get it out of my skin. You know what I mean? And sit down and relax and just keep
First
moving
of all,
forward.
Harim was having a switchblade fight in the back. It's like, it's like, it's cool. Everything's fine.
Anything.
With a guy who's
for
like, no,
production.
listen, this is about to go down. You ain't gonna stop me. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. You broke up a very romantic moment, to be sure.
Yep. Meanwhile, there's a 70 to 200 zoomed in the back of your car.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm sure they were able to come to fruition at some point at another location.
Yeah, it's all wins.
Yeah, all
They were
wins.
able to resolve their conflict, right?
Good for them.
Oh, geez. Yeah,
I'm
not
sure
the
they're
hardest
still
thing I've
together
ever
to
done
this
on
day.
set.
Yeah. But
Yeah, that's
anyway, conflict together. We can all come
Yeah,
together.
I think it's just like,
and-
it's ultimately like, what does everyone need, and being willing to go there, because it's like, and like ultimately too, being willing to be wrong. Not about that situation, but certain situations on set where it's like, let's argue on behalf of the best outcome of the production. Let's all
Right.
serve it together, and being willing to have that dialogue instead of leaving things out there. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's I love this conversation.
I just imagine an alternate scenario where you walk back to set and everybody's like, hey, what's going on? The guy's still there. And you go, guys, he just needs 15.
He said he never makes it. Let's shoot the other direction for a minute. That's a bad producer.
I feel like
that's a
that's
producer.
how
bad producer.
I feel like that's how I would have resolved the conflict. Been like, you know what? Everybody needs love. Can we just turn the camera and we'll do it this way? And they'll
Okay,
be
why
back.
don't you just pull forward 15 feet? We won't say
That's
anything.
so funny.
Anyways, all right. So, guys, we've had such a great time talking, such a great conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation with you guys. And yes, if anybody's just thinking about conflict or any of the things that we said, I was about to say something. There's like no 1-800 number. It's not like a special episode.
I was like, is she going to lead us to some resources that people can click onto or call into? Is there a hotline
Well,
that
no,
I'm not
just
aware
that
of?
I guess I just feel like everybody deserves the right to hold the hand of someone else and walk through conflict and try and just make the best outcome possible. I don't know why I'm going down that tangent, but I just don't want anybody to feel like, if there's anybody listening to this that's on the other side where they feel like I'm completely broken or my mindset is not this or I'm not, it's okay. And when it's time for you, it will be time and it'll be okay.
Absolutely.
And that there will be people that will love you. There will be people that will still continue to walk with you. And so, I don't know. Whatever.
Wonderful. Very smooth close.
Everything was perfect
Whatever.
until the
And with
whatever.
that, thank you.
We got to work on our transitions. We really got to work on our transitions.
Clearly. Without a guest, I feel like we struggle a little bit to go from point A to point B. But we'll get there. Come on with us, y'all.
So the last thing is thinking about not necessarily I had written this thing about limited thinking, and then the question is, well, who is the new you? And not necessarily about bad habits or any of that. Just, who do you want to be in this life? And how will you get there, essentially? And who will you go with? So just wanted to say that, and also that Chris and Harim will be doing special episodes on them, hopefully the rest of this year, because they're going to be teaching some stuff. And I want you to think about what are the ways that you can reset and become but I put this, but then I thought about what Chris I thought about what Chris said. Chris says it's not about reset or it's not about new me. I guess I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you just had a closing statement of, you don't need to change, it'll come when it's time. And then you're like, then your notes are like,
how you gonna change?
By the way, you should think about resetting that button. You should be thinking about hitting the kill switch and restarting the engine, baby.
Right.
Okay. Do
The
you guys
whole new
have
you.
anything else before I close?
I'm
This has
excited for
been
this
an
year.
absolutely wonderful episode.
It absolutely has, and I'm excited to see what new and exciting things this year is going to bring for
Yeah.
the three of us, for this podcast, for all the people in our circles, and yeah, I'm excited to build some more.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us for the Heartbeat Film Podcast. We can't wait to chat with you later and can't wait to spend the rest of 2023 with you. Okay, goodbye.
See you guys
Bye,
next time.
guys.